You've already worked with the button control quite a bit at this point, but there are a few different types of button control that act in a similar way. You'll learn about the different types of button controls in this lesson. To begin, open the My Project sample file from your Sample Files folder. And add a new web form to the project named controlstest.aspx. Now open controlstest.aspx in Design View and add a button control to the page. Next, you're going to set the properties of the new button control. Set the ID property to button test. Set the text property to standard button. Set the back color property to black. Set the forecolor property to white. And set the font size property to large. To set the font size property, you will need to expand the font property in the Properties window. You can then select the size from a drop-down menu. As you can see, you have quite a lot of control over the appearance and style of your buttons. Note that if you look at the available events for the button control, you can see that there are a few other events in addition to click. Using any event other than click for a button is extremely rare. Next, add a link button control to the page underneath the button control. The link button control behaves in exactly the same way as a button control, but the server will convert it into an HTML A tag rather than an HTML input submit control. This control appears to be a hyperlink, but acts like a button. Unlike a hyperlink, it uses JavaScript to post back the page. Now you're going to set the properties of your new link button control. Set the ID property to link button test. Set the forecolor property to red. Set the text property to link button, and set the font bold property to true. Note that it is possible to put any valid HTML code into a link button's text property. This code will appear inside a pair of HTML A tags when sent to the browser. This allows advanced HTML developers to make any part of an HTML page into a button. Finally, you're going to add the last type of button, the image button. Place it just below the link button. It will actually appear just after the link button. This is because of the way the page is structured and isn't something to worry about. The image button control, as you might expect, is a button that uses an image. Note that unlike the link button control, the image button control doesn't need to use any JavaScript code to submit the form. Next, you're going to add the testbutton.png image to the Images folder. You'll find it in the Images folder in your Sample Files folder. You learned how to add files to a project in Lesson 1.7. To do this, right-click on the Images folder, click Add, Existing Item, navigate to your Sample Files folder, open the Images folder, select testbutton.png, and click Add. Now you're going to set the properties of your new image button control. First, select the image button control, then set the ID property to image button test, and set the image URL property to ~images/testbutton.png. You can either type this in or use the Browse button next to the property to find the image. You'll notice that you've used a tilde symbol in the image URL property. The tilde indicates the top level of your website. That is, the root folder where your web.config file is stored. You can use the tilde in this way on any control that has the runAt=server property. Controls that don't run on the server cannot use the tilde. Now set the alternate text property to image button. The alternate text property is exclusive to images. In HTML, it will add an alt property to the image tag. Alternate text was originally intended for users of text-only browsers. Where their browser couldn't display an image, the text was displayed instead. Although today every major web browser is able to display images, alternate text is still useful for two reasons. Firstly, search engines use alternate text to identify which keywords to attach to an image. And secondly, visually impaired users can use alternate text in conjunction with text-to-speech software. You can now see the difference between the button, link button, and image button controls. These three controls provide a choice of 3 different appearances for your buttons. You're going to be using controlstest.aspx to test controls throughout the rest of this session, so remove the buttons before continuing. To do this, select the buttons in Design View and either press the Delete key on your keyboard or right-click and click Delete from the shortcut menu. Close Visual Studio now, saving your changes if prompted. You've now completed Lesson 4.2. Use the button control.